Teresa Mancarini. I'm the media manager here at Greenfield Belser, and I'm going to be your moderator today. I'd like to welcome you to the first webinar in our Brand Thinking series. Today, we're going to cover going mobile, why and how to adapt your website for the smaller screens. And as we get ready to start, please make sure that your phone is muted. This is going to prevent any background noises and ensure that everyone can hear the full presentation. During the presentation, we're going to ask that you chat any questions that you may have for our panelists in the GoToMeeting chat window. And then we're going to hold those questions until the end, and then we'll have plenty of time to get to them and get your questions answered. Also, this webinar is going to be recorded, and we'll send up a follow-up for that. We encourage you as well to join us via social media during the presentation. We're going to be live tweeting from our @GBLTD handle. That's using the hashtag #GBWebinar as well. We're going to be following that discussion. That's how you can also follow along. So join the conversation with us. Also, okay, next, let me introduce our speakers today. Joe Walsh is the Principal and Creative Director with Greenfield Belser. He's working with marketing challenge clients of all shapes and sizes inside the professional services sector and out. He's joined by David Casagrande, one of our web developers who specializes in mobile. Just this year, David was a part of the team that launched 4 client-optimized mobile sites with several others in the works. So, Joe, I'm going to pass it over to you. Let's get started on going mobile.
Thanks for attending this virtual get-together. You know, when you put a program like this together or a party, you're always hoping, you know, folks are going to show up, and indeed we have a robust turnout. I think 130 registrants. So clearly, it's a hot topic, and you know, some of you on the line with us, we've taken a look at the folks who have signed up. Some are marketers, some are technologists, some are from the line, you know, CPAs and accountants and consultants and lawyers. And so some of you have more knowledge about this going mobile thing than others, and we've really tried to strike a balance information-wise, you know, between the rudimentary and the advanced. But I think you'll all learn something and get some ideas, which is the point of this seminar series. You know, through the years, we've done a lot of, our clients have really done a lot of great work on the web, and more and more of them are now experimenting and making the most of the smartphone environment. And, you know, just this year, as Teresa alluded to, and it's only April, we got 5 sites, mobile optimized sites that have gone live, and we've learned a lot, and the point is to share those lessons with you here today. So here's the agenda. I'll get into it in one moment. I just do want to quickly plug that if you like the program, we have more coming up in the series. So stay tuned for more invites to those. The agenda is as promised. We're going to go through the business case for mobile, why it matters, mobile versus optimized mobile sites, what's the difference there, mobile sites versus apps. Believe it or not, we get that question. What's the difference there as well? Which phones and why, and platforms to develop for, and what are some of the considerations when you do that stuff and do it well. And then lastly, where we'll spend most of our time is on you know, mobile design musts and best practices. Okay, and so that's the agenda. You'll follow your way through as Teresa's alluded to. There's a hashtag in the upper right-hand corner. I'll show it to you periodically. Please do submit your questions, and we're going to leave ample time at the end. We think we have roughly 45 minutes of content here for you, and then, you know, lots of time to discuss and address any particular questions you have.
Okay, I got it. I think I.
Okay, the business case. Are you still with me, Teresa?
I reduced.
That's weird.
Volume up here because.
Hey, I just hear some noise in the background, so I'd like to eliminate that. So. The business case for mobile, here's the highlights of it, and we start with a quote from Stephen Colbert. He says, "I'm not a fan of the facts. The facts can change, but my opinion will never change, no matter what the facts are." And he reminds me of a lot of the professionals we run into in firms like yours who have an opinion, but that's why we do our market research, and we have lots of data points that inform, you know, programs like this. And just to take you up a little bit above the going mobile subject matter, you know, we started 10 years ago with a poll of executive buyers of professional services and learned what they look for when they look for you on the web and what was important. And we refreshed that information in 2010 with our digital marketing study, which expanded the scope away from just websites to things like social media usage and search engines and email marketing and the like. And the point is, you know, and we're not going to bore you with all of them. The point is, the reason we do this research is to prove that indeed your clients, your prospects, even the most senior members of those demographics are online, and they're online in droves. And so, for instance, I'll give you a couple of data points here. 94% of them go online daily for things other than email, all right? You have a question like, what do they do online when they get there? And there's a variety of things. They look for news. They do personal purchasing, you know, things like, you know, hotel bookings, research of all types, business purchases. But the information point that we'd really point your attention to here is in the warmer colors, the orange and reds, where it said that the newer methods of doing research via the internet are really overtaking the old, okay? We know they're looking for you and firms like you online because we asked specifically, will you search for a professional service firm online? And 3/4 said yes. They find you by a variety of services, topping the, a variety of media, topping the online list is your website. 85% consider that most important in finding you online. We asked about search engines. Half will, you know, consult the search engine. And by the way, we're going to see stats that more and more they're doing that mobily. And then how important is your website? Well, we asked, again, specifically, you know, quality is a subjective thing, but we said, how likely is it that your decision to put a new firm on your short list would be influenced by perceptions of quality or lack of quality on the firm's website? And 3/4 said, it's going to have a great deal of influence over my perception of a firm's quality, okay? And again, would you put someone on a short list based on what you found on the web? Yes, a resounding yes, half say yes. Okay, so it's the subject for another seminar, the web trends, but to us it's curious that in a world where the web is so vital, why are so many sites so similar? And many of you have seen this. If you've been to our programs before, this is a composite sketch of desktop websites that show that most firms, this represents 200 largest law, accounting, and consulting firms worldwide, they basically look alike. They focus on themselves, and the point being that we know you need a good differentiating site, but now let's move on and say, do you need a great and functional mobile-friendly site, okay? Still with me? In DC, can you hear me okay?
Yep, we're great.
Excellent. I'm just periodically checking to make sure it's working okay. So here's the stats. Mobile is increasingly important. You know it. This stat projected by the end of last year from Cisco that 50% of all Americans will own a smartphone. Morgan Stanley says that by the end of 2014, more people are going to access sites from the internet than from mobile sites than from their desktops or laptops. 24%, according to Google in their mobile movement studies, go for business information. They use their smartphone looking for business information, product, services, or through a search engine on their mobile phone. And then our own data, our own clients, Google Analytics, and this is fresh, it says that on average 7% of total traffic of our clients' sites comes from mobile devices compared to 6 months ago. That number's gone up 66%. So it's going to scale up fast, and that's why we're all here together today. So that's the business case. Now let's talk about what's mobile and what's optimized mobile. And again, for those of you who already know this, pardon, we're going to be into best practices here in a moment. This is a website on the left, our great client, Marshall Gerstein, an IP firm based in Chicago. This is their site on the left, desktop, and this is their site pre-optimized on the right on mobile. And what's the problem here? You can't read all the information. For instance, a simple observation is that the navigation, which runs horizontally, is running off the page, okay? So that's your site on mobile. This is your mobile site on mobile. Again, we have Marshall Gerstein's desktop on the left, and on the right is a mobile optimized site. Again, we're going to get into the whys and wheres and hows of doing great optimized mobile in a moment, but that's an example in the round of what we're trying to achieve here. Here's a good example that's just a reference point of before and after for an architecture firm who we did not work with, but left non-optimized website. Again, it shows up on the web, it's just not easy to use. Right is after optimized. Things like numbers are easy to find, directions and maps are easy to find, optimized navigation. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. What Marketing Sherpa recommends is that you kind of do a gut check, and it's a three-step process. You look at your site on your phone, different phones, by the way, now. You do the same in different browsers like Firefox and Safari, and you really do a gut check. You take an honest look at what you see, and then you ask these questions: is it too cluttered? Is it easy to use? I'm talking about myself, but my fat fingers fit. All right, is it finger friendly? Is it easy to find the best and most relevant content from a user perspective, not what you want to push? And in the end, is it good or is it adequate? And do I even really need to spend the money to make it optimized mobile after doing that assessment? Okay, apps versus mobile sites, and a quick buzz through this because I think it's apparent on the surface, but let's just be sure. A mobile site's on the left. That's Google's optimized version of their search engine for a mobile user. On the right is a collection of apps. To demonstrate the difference, because we have a lot of clients, they come to us and they say, we want to build an app. And we're like, well, why do you want to do that? Well, we want our site to be visible on mobile. And we're like, oh, that's a mobile site. That's not an app. So here's the big difference. We're using Archstone, which is not a client, as an example. They're a luxury apartment landlord. And they do both. They have an app on the left and a mobile site. The app is task-centric. It's repeatable. Things like paying my rent or arranging for a service call because the heat doesn't work. But they also have a mobile site, which is information search-centric, and it's used in its optimized format for doing things like looking for a new apartment that you do periodically. Okay? So there's the big differences. Which phones and why, and which platforms, basically here's the latest data for you taken from Nielsen. It's a bit grainy because it was a small graphic, but I still think you can make it out here. What it's saying on the left is that market share-wise, Android has 48%, Apple has 32%, BlackBerry 12, other 8, but phones purchased in the last 3 months show that Apple's gaining ground. Android still 48%, Apple 43%, BlackBerry shrinking at 5%, and other shrinking at 4%. The point of all this in the BlackBerry, which used to own the share, the market, and has a real stock price hit as a result of its shrinking share, is no longer the standard bearer in the profession. And we have evidence of this in our own research with clients as we prepare to go mobile with them. We ask them what phones they're on. And here's 2 firms of different sizes that, again, are just, taking the Nielsen data and making it, making the point again that Android and iPhone tend to be the platforms that are dominating the market. Our own analytics suggest the same thing. So here's the takeaway for you all. You have to plan for multiple platforms and browsers, right? But you can't expect your site to look the same on all of them. And you need to choose from a development and a design perspective the ones that are most popular, just like you do with your desktop site. And the 2 that are most popular are iPhone and Android. And we obviously have to pay attention to standards. But our advice to you is it's very expensive to make it perfect on all devices. So play where the majority of the market, and that's on the platforms we just referenced. Okay, let's get into the heart of this, which is the best practices and the design musts. You've all heard the phrase content is king. Well, it's a great one that we've lifted in the against this subject matter, which is context is king. And we got 2 devices here that show the drama of the difference. You know, we have our big desktop and then our small iPhone, and there's lots of sizes in between and some even bigger sizes, but we're dealing with this small screen environment. What do we do within that context with your content? We get a lot of questions. I'm sure some of you are asking this about responsive or liquid design versus versus an optimized mobile site. They are not the same thing. This is the Boston Globe's responsive design site. What's being shown here is on the far right, you know, on a 10 by 24 screen, scaling down to, you know, a iPhone type screen at 240, and the design as is with no optimization is responding to the size of the screen. That's different than an optimized site. An optimized site is faster, deals with bandwidth issues, is often dealing with less content, not the whole site made for the smaller screen. So you can do both. You can do responsive design in optimized site, like Boston.com has a optimized site as well, but it's just more expensive to do that. So you got to make a choice. Okay, the mobile context. Here's a real phone. This one's bigger than life size, as you can see for yourself. But the point here is that it's a small space we're dealing with there in the middle. When you get around the you know, the menu bar and the button bar, you're really dealing with a very small screen indeed. It's also important, you know, and I don't know if you've all considered this, but there's usage differences. The desktop and the mobile have very different environments, and I don't mean the devices themselves. I mean the people using them. Just compare and contrast. So desk is typically you're sitting at a desk. Mobile, more often than not, you're at on a couch or you know, on a desk, you're in an office environment more often than not. Mobile, you're walking around, or you're in line, or getting a sandwich at lunch. Desk is working, usually. Mobile is getting to work, traveling or waiting in line for a bus or an airplane or what have you. Desk is random surfing, sometimes. Mobile is very specific. You're looking for information to accomplish something in particular. Desk is more creating content. Mobile is consuming. Desk is focused on the computer. Mobile, you're more easily distracted by your environment. So, you know, those are some of the differences. I already, some of the others that are pertinent to your designs and development and best practices. Clearly the real estate issue. There's bandwidth issue. 3G is not, you know, a T1 line. There's touch input. There's the fact that it's hard to type. Although some of you are masters with your thumbs. There's no flash, which we're going to talk about here in a moment. So that's the setup. Here's the pitch on smart practices, and I'll do one last check here in DC just to make sure you're still hearing me loud and clear. Is that so? Teresa?
Yep, we're good, Joe.
Thank you very much for confirming. Give me a little heart palpitation there. Okay, so here we go. Tip one, things that we see that are very smart to do. For the marketers on the line, you're rolling your eyes at me, but the rest of you, you know, the core message is that from one environment to the next, the desktop to the mobile phone, you want to deliver brand consistency. We have Marshall Gerstein here on the left, who we've already talked about, looking like Marshall Gerstein on the right, on the phone. You have other examples here. Han Hessen's a fine finance firm built in New York. Desktop site left, mobile phone right. True consistency, just different size screens. You have Wyatt, a Southeast regional firm, does great work, has its client stories front and center on the laptop, desktop site, does the same you know, storytelling on its mobile site and more. Okay, so there's consistency. You know, Doctor Took Their Own Medicine here. You know, Fresh Brands, our site was launched a year ago. The mobile version 6 months ago, still looking and feeling very much like Greenfield Belzer. And then our friends at Choate, who have launched their new site On the left, about a month ago, we have their permission. They are launching their public mobile version of their site in a week or two, but it's right at the finish line, and there's a look at how it looks and feels just like Choate. So there's from the rooftops, the mountains. Lesson one is let's be consistent. Okay, very rudimentary. You got to get found. All right, and that means a domain name. You're going to have either an M, like Archstone does, in your URL, or mobile.gbltd.com. But more importantly, you need your coders to automatically detect and then redirect the visitor to mobile so that they're not lost. You spend all that money to get a good mobile optimized site, and then you want to make sure it's the one that shows up. Other lessons. Look, we're moving around. We looked at the usage difference. What you really want to do here is make contacting you an easy thing to do, like Staples, right? The easy button. Remember that mobile means going somewhere, so make it easy to get there. Marshall Gerstein in their design has made contact us pretty much front and center, or sitting on top of some of the firm's key messages. Navigation it's probably the first thing you got to think about, like how much and where, because you're trying to make it easy for people to get the information they need quickly. So in Marshall Gerstein's case, they have vertical navigation. By the way, there's very few firms who have the ability to do horizontal navigation because our navigation is too long. All right, so it's almost all vertical. What Marshall Gerstein does is have it hidden, if you will, behind a drop-down, which is a simple menu that's revealed site-wide. You can always get back to this, but they've still offered or been able to deliver contextually content to the homepage in addition to navigation that either has a function or a messaging purpose. Okay, so it's having their cake and eating it too. In terms of navigation, it's a general rule. It's a good rule for desktop sites too. That 3 touches get you where you want to go. So we'll back it up. I hit menu. I hit, and I'm going to just point it out here, client successes down at the bottom, and I'm to the case studies that Marshall shares about its clients. In this case, a client who won a huge patent, a patent award, and is a big art collector of Japanese and samurai-related art, and made a gift of a full suit of armor to the firm, which sits proudly in the firm's lobby. So a great story there. Okay, search. We do need to offer search on the mobile phone. This is Wyatt's homepage on mobile, but not necessarily search at the expense, again, of the relevant content, whatever that relevant content is. The search, practicality here needs to be wide enough so that the users aren't limited by space, right? Another good practice is getting a link to the full site, especially if you do not put all your content, choose to put all your content on the mobile optimized version of your site. Allowing people the ability to get to the full site is just a smart practice. It's a courtesy, okay, is why it does here. A logo on every page is just a default. It's comfort. It's what we all know to get us back to home. And, we've taken that advice again on our own site. Not a big revelation there, but still a fundamental that you need to pay attention to. We mentioned you don't have Flash in this environment, and that doesn't mean you need to bore people to death. There are newer technologies that, by the way, can be applied to desktops as well as to mobile, like HTML5 and cascading CSS3 and JavaScript that still allow for rich interaction on our own site. There's movement that allows you to either self-navigate through case studies or other bits and interesting pieces of the site in our videos, or it can just overtake it and move it for you. So takeaway is, don't be afraid of Flash just because Apple says we can't do it. There's other ways to engage and make things interactive, and the newer technologies enable that. Okay. Finger space. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We show Choate's attorney listings here. Put your finger on your screen and you know, just put it over Bill Asher, and you can tell there's plenty of room there. It's the Apple model. It's typically a centimeter by centimeter of padding in your designs, and it's not just around lists, but everything like buttons, like menu, to search items. It's just a general best practice to allow, you know, finger comfort. Okay. Font size, it's a different environment. This is a screen capture of a blog post we put together about 8 months ago when mobile was really starting to hit the airwaves. It says, your website is difficult to see and read on my smartphone, and it annoys me because I can't see and read it. So what you're doing, again, is just being courteous by making you know, the font's big enough. In the case of Marshall, this shows the bio for Dave Gass. Not only is the type big enough for somebody with bad eyes like me to read, and by the way, the stats show that it's 20% slower to read on a desktop website, never mind a smartphone. It just hurts. But there's also you know, the ability to deliver substance graphically. Like we have, instead of, you know, the phone number in 11-point type, you hit the icon, and off you go to connect Dave, or you send an email, or you link in, or download a vCard. So, and by the way, the spacing here helps a lot with legibility. So again, size matters in your designs, and even in the context of a very small screen, you can still help a poor eyesighted guy like me. Clearly, some of our phones work both landscape and portrait, and designing and coding needs to be taken into account. It seems kind of obvious, but you know, plan ahead is our takeaway for you. When it comes to login and registrations, the general rule, and then I'm going to give you the exception to the rule, is don't make people log in and or register because it's hard to do. They're on the move. It's harder to type. You know, if registration, like a seminar, is the point, then make it simple. And why it's done here is taking that advice to heart. You offer the seminar, you hit the register button, and you really streamline the number of form fields. The fewer fields, the better. In this case, it's first name, last name, email, name, rank, serial number, right? You don't make them fill in company. You don't make them fill in address. You don't make them fill in job title. All information as marketers we'd love to have, and we ask to have on the desktop version of our sites, but just making life a little bit easier on mobile with the recognition that the keyboard takes over half the screen anyways. So that's what streamlining is all about. By the way, on form fields, you know, auto-completes are, speaking of courtesy, are very helpful. To drive some of us bonkers when it takes you to the wrong word. But, you know, we're showing Harry Potter here, the build from HA to Harry Potter, and ultimately, you know, landing on Chamber of Secrets and the different titles that either move your book that can be purchased there, or on the right, you know, starting with letter J, you get the Joes and Joys and Joshes of the world when you're looking, say, for a list of consultants. But our warning to you is that this is good to do, it's smart to do, it's courteous to do, but it is more expensive to do because it requires more indexing and of your site, which is just really a data thing. But nevertheless, autocompletes are a thing to consider. Now, the hard part of this, before we you know, get into questions, I got about 10 more minutes here, is what do I put in and what do I leave out of the site. It's rationalizing content. And, you know, the general rule is lean is better for all the reasons we've spelled out. You don't want to include all the information from the full site. However, that requires choices. It's going to stir some debates internally. In Marshall Gerstein's case, just to, you know, show one versus the other, there's that non-optimized version of their mobile website, you know, had about 12 images, a smaller version of their core messaging, but when they've got to the optimized version, it's a handful of messages that also rotate through, some contact information, bigger, easier to read. So these decisions are central. The first ones you have to make beyond going, you know, do I do app or do I even bother with the optimized version? But you know, we do know from our research that there is some data you can think about as you consider what to include and not to include. The most popular pages using our own analytics of our current client sites are things like home pages and professional landing pages, meaning the A to Z list of people. So those are important, but not the only thing that's important. You want to choose and feature content that you know, matters most to mobile visitors, and if you don't know, ask them. You know, so here's just to back up a little bit. You know, in Wyatt's case, I mentioned that they have it's not the only thing they feature on their mobile site, but they have a lot of client stories, which is central to their brand, and their client success is really what defines them. We do know from research that when executive buyers come to your website, they want to know who you worked with, what you did, and how it turned out. So in a way, you know, that broader research has informed Wyatt's decisions here about content. When you think of streamlining, when you think of making things lean, there's other smart things you can do. For instance, you need to lead with content carrying words or images that are very descriptive, and what you're trying to do here is you know, optimize efficiency, not waste people's time with wasted clicks or you know, making them back out of where they were, which is very frustrating on a mobile site. So for instance, in our blog, you know, you have a descriptive title, your website's first impression, was it good for you? Or just below that, social media tools communicate your brand measurably. You want to write with as much description as possible, okay? Speaking of writing, when it comes to things like, you know, thought leadership pieces or white papers or alerts, you really want to work hard on those titles and the subtitles and the short narratives so that you can, as a visitor, make a quick decision, do I really want to click for more? All right, and that's what what these good titles and good copywriting helps your users do, okay? Lists are huge for obvious reasons in the world we all live in, the professional services world. There's offices, there are you know, lists of professionals, there are practices, service areas, industries, and it's all very much list-based. So how do you help make that navigation manageable is what we're talking about here. This is Choate's landing page for practice areas. When you go inside, you do get an A to Z list. Here's our advice for you. If it is a word-only list, text-only, no pictures or images, like a practice area list, as I've shown here, it's safe to display up to 100. And what I mean by that is, you know, you can just imagine what I'm doing. I have my finger on the phone and I'm scrolling it up. We're used to doing that, all right? And there's ways to get through, accepted ways that you all know from your phones of ways to you know, really make your way through those long lists. You know, the A to Z thing on the side helps to make it easy. Like I hit H on Wyatt's site and I get to the H's and get to Bill Hollander, their managing partner, on their site that way. But I think you can see the ease of use here. The broader point is, if it is a text-only list, you can put more you can accommodate a longer list. If you have images, and there are lots of you who do, so we're showing our site here on our case studies page. We have small thumbnail images of some of our case studies, which really helps, from a attention grabbing perspective. It draws me in. But the point is, if you're dealing with images, you can't put as many of them because it means more and more scrolling because they take up more space. Best practice is maybe 20 or so. All right. Speaking of images, the same rules apply to things like offices. Wyatt has 6, 7 locations. They can put pictures of their offices or people from their offices, whereas someone like our client Navigant, who we haven't done their optimized site for, has 36 offices, and having pictures for every office makes 0 sense. Okay. So that helps you with choices, and again, as a courtesy. Related links have to be thought through. This is Hahn & Hessen's real estate page. We're in a couple levels on their site. Now, on a real estate page on your desktop, just think about it. Picture your own. You have related articles, related events, related industries, related sub-practice areas. There's a million things to relate. Related professionals. You probably want to pick and choose which ones are most important in this environment. Hahn Hessen made the decision to really put the emphasis on related attorneys. The logic being, that I want to get to a number or a person. Okay. I hope that's clear. Couple more of these, and then we're going to take your questions. Be even smarter about images and video. What I mean by that is that we're all starting, hopefully, to think through and adopt video for our desktop sites, and the reason is that they have a power of engagement, and they can be very captivating alternatives to reading, and you have to be smart about them in the broader, bigger environment of a desktop, meaning they can't be 5 minutes long. They need to be about 30 seconds, a minute tops. But there's also optimization considerations here. It has to be very relevant. Can't just decorate, okay? It has to be pertinent to what I'm trying to accomplish as a mobile user. To be smart about it means to leverage third-party video players like YouTube for a lot of reasons. There's consistency reasons, meaning familiarity as a user. There's tracking reasons, SEO reasons, speed reasons, bandwidth reasons, playlist reasons. There's a lot of reasons that you don't need to build your own player. Okay, that's what we mean by being smarter about images and video. And the last part of this is that they literally need to be sized down, resized for mobile to accommodate, the bandwidth. I'm on a 3G phone, and if I want to check a highlight of a Red Sox game on ESPN site, I do have to wait a little bit, even though they have optimized the video for that environment, whereas it comes up instantly on my desktop. So all of those factors have to go into your video and image strategy as it relates to the smaller screen. Don't mishear me. We think it's vital that you have those engaging media on your the mobile version of your site. It's just that they need to be optimized, which is where the word optimized mobile site comes from. All right, the last question or the last thing we want to share with you is, an anticipating question we might get: how long does it take? What does it cost to do this? Not to bail on the question, but it's all kind of matters. I mean, it's all based on your content. But this is a process that can typically be accomplished in a matter of weeks. The sites we just looked at together, with one exception for reasons that had nothing to do with development or design, we're all done in 6 to 8 week time periods. Here's our advice: if you have a good site now with good content now, there's no reason that in a matter of weeks it couldn't be made optimal for the mobile environment. If you are in the process of redoing your site, redesigning your site, you might, typically along a timeline we're advising the mobile version to be done, you know, about halfway into the project when you've settled on a new design and you're developing. So, questions coming up here, but just one more resource for you and one more place to get ideas. We clearly centered our presentation here on the sites we're most familiar with, but we get inspiration, we get ideas from this site called Mobile Awesomeness, not a shy name for a site. It's a collection of hundreds of mobile sites. It has a TripAdvisor-like quality to it with people rating it thumbs up and thumbs down, and you can see for yourself here the Siskel and Ebert thing going on. But it is, if you're looking for ideas, it's a wonderful source. We also have our own digital cookbook, which touches on mobile, but has a number of recipes that tie back to our research and ideas for just generally doing good web and appetizing web. So having said that, Teresa, I'm going to give it back to you, let you moderate again and take us through some questions.
Sounds great, Joe. We have a couple really good questions here. I'm going to start with the first one from Clinton Gary. What are the pros and cons of using a mobile content management technology from a vendor other than your current main website tech vendor?
Great question, Clinton. David, do you have a point of view on that?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm weary of what he means by mobile content management technology, but I would assume it's that your website would be hosted through a different kind of supplier and have its own specific content, which for me seems counterintuitive to the process. It's like, why would you want to update your content twice when you can patch into the same database? But yeah, basically it's like you want to, in my mind, why would you ever want to update content twice? Your interns aren't going to like it. Nobody's going to like managing two different sites. So it's like, in my mind, there's only one option, is to keep it in one single place.
Good. And Clinton, if you, we know Clinton very well. Thanks for the question. And if you want to debate us, just pick up the phone and call. We'll give you more of a point of view on that. What else you got, Teresa?
Okay, and then also along the lines of entering content or about your content, should you convert your PDF into HTML for mobile, of course?
Yeah, and that's pretty interesting, and we've kind of done it two different ways, because a phone natively right now, every phone platform has a little bit different way of handling it, but it seems out of the box they don't read PDFs super incredible. So you need a third-party application, either from Adobe, like an Acrobat Reader for your phone, or another type of open source application like that. So if you're looking for the most mobile optimized site, you won't have download content like a PDF or something. You'd convert it to HTML. But again, it's a balance of how much time you want to spend doing it, how important that download is, and if you trust your users to be able to figure it out.
Great. Okay, another question is about deciding between a mobile stylized website versus an app. When do you decide, or how do you decide to choose between the two?
Well, I'll David, you might weigh in. I'll start just reinforcing the point I tried to make, and maybe it wasn't very clear, but showing that Archstone site, there are two purposes. So an app is typically task-centric. I want to book a restaurant. I want to find a movie ticket. I want to, pinpoint my location or track my flight. Versus, I'm looking, or my visitor is looking for information broadly on our practice areas. So I don't know, David, if you have any more advice on that, but that for me, the big difference is, the task versus the info-centric.
No, I think that definitely nails it right on the head. And with your Archstone example, it's like the app was for, paying rent and requesting service, and the website was for getting info.
Yep.
Specifically. So, yeah, I think that's the exact rating.
I don't have much more to say than
yeah.
Yeah. but there are lots of, by the way, when we were putting this together, doing lots of our own, collecting our own thoughts and looking at our own research, and but we also looked at places like, Marketing Sherpa and the Mobile Awesomeness. There's lots of good resources. If you just type into Google app versus mobile site, you'll get good arguments on either side, and the pros and cons, and whys and why not.
Great. Okay, so this one is sort of about, those people who may not be able to develop an entire mobile site. Is there sort of a maybe quote-unquote shortcut to doing this? Can you just develop a few landing pages, or, is it best to go ahead and convert the whole website?
David, do you want to start with that one?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's all about what your goals are. It's like you could have a mobile optimized site that's literally, a single landing page with who you are, what you do, and how to get a hold of you, and that might be, perfectly enough for you, and you can whip that out, in a couple days. And some people need, a completely customized version of their site for mobile where they want every single page. So there's no real, like, you have to do this or you have to not do this. It really depends on what your end goal is as on the company side.
Yeah, I just to reiterate, it's all based on your content. It can be a matter of weeks or days. In that case, I could imagine, for instance, a mobile site that really was name, rank, serial number, contact information, directions, let's say, not to make this too law firm centric, but an attorney listing or a CPA listing, and full site for everything else. That could be done easily. Is that the best strategy? I don't. It depends on the situation. But you can make, to build on David's point, you can make mobile optimized fast.
Great. Okay, still along that same lines, what are the most common sections of a website to convert? If we're going along the same lines, we can't convert the entire site. What are the top sections of a website to convert?
Our data shows, given the world we live in, it's people-based. The people is the product, that you probably want to get your professionals converted. And that's more important in the law firm and consulting firm world than it tends to be in the accounting world. And I know we have samples of each on the phone with us, but and the reason is, more often than not, people hire accounting firms versus hire individuals at some of the other firms. So that's one. Certainly, things like contact us has to be featured, and after that, it's really it's situational.
Okay, that's good. Do you have anything?
No, I think that answers it better.
Okay. And Joe, this is, when you're dealing with clients talking about their challenges to converting to a mobile site, what do you think the biggest challenge is?
Well, it's been a moving target. Early, which is 12 months ago, it was, why do we need to do this? That was the biggest challenge. Convincing them that it was important. I think now all the data points to, why it is so incredibly important. But now the hard part, which we've touched on, is, which we were just discussing in a couple of these questions, what do I include and what do I not include, and why? And making those hard decisions fast. I don't know, any other challenges you see, David? Or
I mean, there's a million challenges in developing, but yeah, the biggest one is really just nailing down exactly you want that mobile website to be, for what you want it to represent your company with.
Yeah, and it's easier, Teresa. I'm not sure who asked the question, but it's easier when you have a site that's already done. a desktop site, and you're just making decisions, you're picking and choosing. It's interesting to do it as you're designing a brand new site, to think simultaneously about, okay, how's this going to work in the mobile world? So that's the new territory.
Okay, great. Just a follow-up question to the from Anthony Seaman, who asked the other question on app or best approach to converting your site and which pages if you can't convert the entire site. He's saying basically he wants to know, do you need to let people know that they're going to visit the non-quote mobile-friendly version of the site, or are they just going to discover for themselves that not all the pages are designed? What does that flow look like for users?
So the question is, how do you let people know they're on a mobile version of the site?
Well, I think kind of like if you're converting a few different pages, or if you're choosing certain sections to convert, but then they want to go to other sections of your larger site.
So I completely get it.
Yeah.
So we made the point. We showed Wyatt's one of Wyatt's pages, and it's a great question. We're buzzing through a lot of stuff fast, but there was a full site link, and that was purposeful. It's like the full site link means if you're not finding something you want, go to the full site, and that isn't there just for fun. It's there for purpose. And if you really do streamline your content, you want to make sure that you're giving people access to the deeper resources elsewhere. And that's how you do it with a full site link.
Great. Okay. These are some other questions that came up in our chat and were responded to individually, but the question came up about ideal font sizes for narrative text. And I think the standard here seems to be nothing under 14-point font. That's just optimized for mobile viewing.
Is that what you find, David?
Yeah, 14's like you don't want to really go below that in your narrative text. The same with like your line height spacing. Kind of, I feel like we space it out a little more on a mobile phone than we would normally do on a desktop site. Just not only for aesthetics, but also just readability. It just reads a lot easier when you have a little bit more space in there. But yeah, I mean, we've gone as high as like 16 points sometimes on a narrative just to kind of because we knew there's not a lot there, so we can kind of push the font size up. And then you could even look into doing something, have like 3 options of font size to change it within the phone, like within the page, so you can dynamically just change it if you're not happy with the size.
Yeah. So I just put back up the bio for Dave Gass at Marshall, and so there's that represents the size we're talking about, and also the spacing we're talking about between lines.
Yeah, exactly.
I think a standard in a newspaper, not online, is like something like 12 points. So we're not talking about, we're not talking about huge sizes compared to normal, but just respectful sizes for the environment.
Okay, and another question came in about tablets. So this is just a question of how do, does a mobile site also apply across tablets? How do people view your site via tablet?
David, do you have a?
Yeah, definitely. We've definitely talked a lot about the role of a tablet computer, and I think we've all come up with, and I think this is pretty across the board, that a tablet is made to handle the full web. Like, you don't need a mobile optimized site, because a mobile optimized site is a lot leaner than what I would consider a tablet site. Like, a tablet site might just have a little bit less of a stylized look, or maybe fewer columns than your desktop site. But on the whole, we don't redirect like an iPad to the mobile site. One, because we're sizing images a good bit smaller, so they're going to be stretched out on a tablet and not look right. And the tablets are more than capable of having the screen size and the CPU processing power to handle full desktop sites. That being said, obviously there's no flash on those kind of devices, so that's why there's a lot more push to just build full HTML5, JavaScript, CSS3 applications rather than Flash.
Yeah, that's
So it translates to the tablet automatically. You don't have to build anything outside of that realm. So you're designing for 2 screens instead of 3.
Yeah, I have the same answer that you did, and the only difference, in my view, between tablet and desktop is that sometimes, you're in a tablet, you don't have Flash. So those newer technologies address that, and so what we're really talking about in mobile optimized sites is smartphone mobile.
Okay. So that is sort of the question base that we got. Thank you guys so much for your questions. If you guys have any more, feel free to just type them quickly into this chat box we're watching. But we really appreciate all the questions. I think it was a great conversation, for sure.
Yeah, just a reminder to wrap it up. Thank you again, and we do have more in this series on the horizon, and you'll get information about that, like it or not. And you can choose what you're interested in, and I hope to meet you virtually again. So thanks for coming.
Great, thanks everyone.